In this alternate timeline, the United States did not rise in North America. Instead, it emerged on the vast landmass that China occupies in our world. From its earliest days, this location forced the United States into a very different destiny, one shaped by dense populations, ancient civilizations, and some of the most volatile borders on Earth. If the United States had developed in East Asia, the geopolitical, cultural, and demographic consequences would have been far more intense than anything in our real history. The simple act of geography would have rewritten every chapter of American development, from its founding myths to its modern identity. The first major shift came from geography itself. Rather than being separated from rival powers by the Atlantic and Pacific, this America found itself surrounded by neighbors with long military traditions and massive populations. To the north lay the expanding Russian Empire and later the Soviet Union, an immediate and permanent threat positioned directly on the American frontier. This single geographic fact meant that every American president, from the nation's birth to the modern era, would have operated under the shadow of a powerful northern rival capable of projecting force across shared borders. To the west and southwest, the country met the rugged mountains and deserts leading into Afghanistan and Central Asia, regions historically resistant to foreign influence and famous for draining the resources and morale of invading powers. No matter the century, the United States in this position would have learned early that military campaigns in these areas were rarely short, cheap, or decisive. The complexities of tribes, terrain, and rival influences would have shaped American military doctrine for generations. Meanwhile, to the south and southeast stretched the ancient trade routes of Southeast Asia, dense with kingdoms, maritime powers, coastal cities, and strategic choke points. Control of these narrow passages would determine access to the Indian Ocean, shaping American trade and diplomacy. And directly to the southwest rose the Indian subcontinent, one of the most populated, diverse, and historically rich regions on Earth. This United States would have lived next to more people than existed in the entire world during its real founding. Every border was crowded. Every frontier was contested. No space was unclaimed. No expansion was uncontested. With such neighbors, early American history unfolded in a climate of constant pressure. Expansion was not an open march across an empty continent. It was a struggle through populated valleys, contested plains, and heavily defended mountain passes. Every piece of territory came with competing claims. Every new settlement risked confrontation. The United States, rather than defining itself through ideas of frontier freedom, would have defined itself through the constant negotiation of crowded borders. Demographically, the consequences were equally transformative. The United States had to confront the immense population gravity of Asia from the beginning. Waves of migration from India, Korea, Central Asia, and parts of Southeast Asia flowed into its borders over centuries, creating a population far more diverse and tightly packed than anything seen in the North American timeline. Cities grew earlier, denser, and with far greater pressure. Instead of drawing settlers across the Atlantic, this America absorbed migrants from the largest population centers on Earth. Its identity would have been shaped not by European colonization alone, but by a fusion of Asian cultures, religions, and economic practices. Economically, the consequences were even more dramatic. Positioned along the ancient Silk Road corridors, the United States controlled land routes leading from the Middle East, through Afghanistan and Central Asia, and deep into China's former interior. Major cities developed on top of trading crossroads linking India, Persia, Siberia, and the Pacific. Instead of New York or Los Angeles, America's great metropolises might have risen in places equivalent to Shanghai, Nanjing, or Guangzhou, massive port cities connected to some of the busiest maritime lanes on the planet. Ports along the eastern coastline turned this America into the central hub of Asia's maritime networks, competing with Japanese and Korean ports and dominating commerce throughout the South China Sea. The combination of inland trade routes and coastal shipping lanes made the United States the economic center of an entire hemisphere. Strategically, this America would have developed a very different military structure. Rather than focusing on naval power across two vast oceans, the United States would have built a massive standing army capable of defending long land borders. Its military culture would not resemble the maritime traditions of the original United States, but instead resemble a hybrid between continental European and East Asian systems, built for constant land-based rivalries, rapid mobilization, and border defense. Compulsory service may have become a permanent feature of American life simply due to the pressures of its neighborhood. The 20th century unfolded with far more severe tensions than in our own timeline. Rather than oceans separating the United States from the USSR, the two superpowers shared a long and heavily fortified border. The Cold War became a daily reality, fought over mountain ranges and river crossings instead of distant proxy wars. Military bases lined the frontier from the Mongolian plateau down to Manchuria, creating one of the most militarized borders in human history. The ideological divide between capitalism and communism played out directly on American soil, with espionage, border skirmishes, and nuclear standoffs occurring far more frequently than in our world. Entire American cities would have lived under the shadow of Russian artillery and missiles, shaping public psychology and domestic politics in ways unimaginable to the America we know. Afghanistan, located on America's western flank, carried its historic role as a geopolitical crossroads into this timeline as well. The United States spent decades attempting to control or influence the region, just as other empires had tried before. But the terrain, tribal politics, and outside interference made Afghanistan a perpetual challenge. Conflicts emerging from this region drained American resources, provoked rival powers, and shaped foreign policy for generations. No matter how powerful America became, Afghanistan remained a rugged reminder of the limits of power. India's position to the southwest created a unique dynamic. With a population larger than the United States, India evolved into America's primary regional partner, or its primary rival, depending on the era. Their shared border ensured economic interdependence, but also occasional tension. Cultural exchange between the two countries ran deep, producing a blended societal landscape unlike anything in the Western Hemisphere. Trade, migration, and competition bound the two giants together, shaping the trajectory of Asia. By the modern era, this United States stood at the heart of the world's most crowded and contested region. Its politics were dominated by border disputes. Its military was structured for land warfare and constant readiness, and its culture reflected centuries of interaction with neighboring civilizations. Meanwhile, North America, without the United States, developed into a divided continent influenced by competing foreign powers and lacking a stabilizing force. Canada, Mexico, and various colonial remnants might have become regional players under the influence of European or Asian powers. This America, relocated to East Asia, became a superpower forged not by isolation, but by proximity. It rose in the middle of rival empires, shifting alliances, and demographic pressures unmatched anywhere else on Earth. In this alternate timeline, the United States was not a distant guardian of global stability. It was a frontline nation living at the center of Asia's historic tensions, shaped by the countless civilizations that surrounded it. Geography did not merely change America, it transformed it into an entirely different kind of superpower.